Hi everyone, my name is Jennifer Woods. This week I am discussing the movie Moment of Truth, Stalking Back, starring Shauna Reed and Luann Ponce. It came out in 1993, and fun fact, Luann Ponce, who plays the teen daughter, is the half-sister of Michael Oliver, whom you might remember as Little Junior in the Problem Child movies. Now, Stalking Back has got to be one of the craziest TV movies I've ever seen, and it's apparently based on a true story. To sum up the plotline in a few words, it's about a woman whose teen daughter is stalked by the softball umpire Curt Harper. It starts when she's about 14, and at first, the mother and father decide to look the other way as this 20-something-year-old man sends flowers and love notes to their child. Oh, it's probably very innocent, they say. But as he gets more aggressive about it, they decide to approach him about it and tell him in a very calm and rational tone that it's time he set his sights on someone his own age. Surprisingly, this doesn't seem to do the trick. So they're forced to go to the police. But the police don't have stalking laws on the books to help in situations such as this one. Years go by as this man continues to terrorize young Larissa and her family. The narrator in this movie is Larissa's mother, Linda. Her family lives in St. Petersburg, Florida. Apparently, they're living a nice, quiet life surrounded by happy children riding their bikes around town. Paul Rudd is also in this according to the credits. We'll find out later that he plays a high school boyfriend of Larissa. He has long hair in this movie, so he looks a little different than he did in Clueless. Basically the same, just with long hair. Linda, as the narrator, introduces the viewer to Curt Harper. Now, as I mentioned earlier, he's the umpire for the girls' softball team. This is a guy who has no business being around middle schoolers, or any girl under 18, or probably any girl or woman, period. Linda says that he's the quiet type, basically every bad guy known to man, the shy, quiet type, who comes alive when he suits up in his gear. Then he becomes an a-hole who orders children around. Curt latches onto Larissa because apparently she's the only girl on the team who doesn't outright mock him. She's not particularly friendly with him. At best, she awkwardly smiles and nods when he talks to her, but basically she doesn't call him names, and that places her leagues ahead of her teammates in his eyes. Larissa gets flowers from a secret admirer, and it comes as no surprise to the viewer when Curt confides in her that he's the secret admirer. Larissa just gives an awkward smile in response and is like, "Oh, ha ha ha." He says he spent $45 plus shipping on the flowers, but she's worth it, even though they are in a recession. This will be the first of many times that he mentions the recession and also that he's decided to take a job as a volunteer fireman. I'm sure the townspeople will feel very safe knowing that if their cat decides to chew through some wires or they fall asleep with a cigarette in their hands, their lives are now in his very capable hands. Larissa and her mother talk over ice cream. The mother, Linda, thinks maybe she should say something to Curt, but her daughter is like, "No, don't do that. That's the worst thing you can do." And so the mother heeds her daughter's warning and decides maybe she can let this whole sideshow go on a little longer before she sounds the alarm. After all, Curt has a low IQ. He probably knows not what he does. And nothing's worse than being one of those helicopter mothers who goes into mama bear mode the second a grown man expresses a romantic interest in their young daughter, right? So that's settled then. Now it's the first day of high school. Larissa decides to wear a very plain-looking dress. No offense to those who have simple taste in clothing, I respect that. I just have a hard time believing that the average teen girl would willingly choose to wear something that bland and colorless on her first day of high school. Maybe I'm out of touch with teens in the 90s, even though I was a teen in the 90s. I can't remember what I wore for my first day of freshman year, but I remember my first day of junior year. I wore black overalls and combat boots. Considering Larissa is sporty and plays softball, I would have expected overalls too. Maybe jean cutoffs. Even a hat with a flower on it. I could have accepted a hat with a flower on it. It would have made her look like she had an ounce of style. As it is, I kind of wonder if she came into the kitchen in something far more controversial, and her parents sent her back upstairs to put on the dress she wore to Aunt Patty's wedding instead. Or maybe she wanted to make the fashion statement that she didn't give a flip about fashion and just reached into her closet for the most random outfit she could find. Once again, no offense. If that was honestly something she wanted to wear for her big first day, then good for her. I get the feeling, though, it was what some 60-year-old man on set wanted her to wear. And it's a feeling I had for much of the movie, that this was not a complex, nuanced teen girl, but the kind of perfect little angel every 90s parent was convinced that they had. It's this vibe I got that was really off-putting to me more than anything. Has anyone else seen that viral post online about how kids in movies will look at this bountiful breakfast in front of them and be like, looks good, but I'm late for the bus. See ya. That's Larissa. She barely has time to sit down at the breakfast table, and her ride is already honking outside. Her mother doesn't so much as wave a Pop-Tart at her as she's heading for the door. So far, I'm not impressed with the parenting going on in this movie. Looking the other way as a grown man stalks the daughter, and letting her leave the house without so much as a granola bar or a dry bagel for the road. Her parents are patting themselves on the back as though she's some nano baby they succeeded in keeping alive for 14 years. How time flies, they say. Curt is idling in his car near the high school, spying on Larissa. Larissa gets a birthday gift delivered to her house, along with a money order. The mother decides that enough is enough. She marks the box as returned to sender. That should show him. Dad says, it's just a birthday gift. Let it go. The dad doesn't want to talk to Curt. It's too much of a hassle. But he gives into pressure and finally does. He tells Curt in a very calm, reasonable tone that the time for sending gifts to young Larissa has come and passed. Capiche? Curt uses this opportunity to mention a recent fire at a bowling alley. Maybe it was arson. The dad suspects Curt isn't just making idle chit-chat. He takes this as a threat. Curt's like, no, I'm just a volunteer fireman, so this is the kind of thing I talk about. The father gets him to promise there will be no more gifts. But guess what there's more of? You guessed it. Linda returns home to find flowers and the box she marked as returned to sender sitting in the driveway. She puts the box directly in the trash. That ought to teach him. Why didn't she think of doing that before? Curt drives by later and finds his gift has been carelessly tossed in the garbage can and is just sitting there by the curb, waiting to be hauled away. He's not happy about this and kicks the garbage can over. This little game of his goes on, with him calling Larissa's house in the middle of the night, leaving her notes, buying her lots of junk, and sending her the bills for it. The police tell the mother that they can't do anything about it, and is she sure this isn't just some innocent thing between a freshman girl and her 20-something-year-old boyfriend? Linda is like, no, she's only 15. The police are like, call us back when he causes her actual bodily harm. Then we can do something about it. The way the cops put it is that if they were to go after him now, when the girl is still alive and physically unharmed, that would count as harassment. The mother notes the contradiction. There is no law that states a grown man can't harass an innocent young girl, just a law that states the police can't harass him back. Makes sense. The parents have a meeting with some other concerned citizens, and they decide that maybe the time has come to kick Curt off the softball team. That ought to do it. And what better way to let him know that his service will no longer be needed on the team than to publicly shame him with a sign plastered on the fence surrounding the baseball diamond. He responds by looking creepily at photos he has of Larissa, peeping through her window at night, and sending her parents a threatening letter. Larissa wants to hang out with her friend during the weekend, but the parents don't think that's a good idea given the fact that she has a stalker watching her every move. But they don't tell her about the threatening letter. So she's like, why can't I go out with my friend and enjoy my life? But like everyone in this movie, she asks this question in a very calm and rational tone. Her father says he wants to spend some quality family time with her. And being a reasonable 15-year-old girl, she's like, okay, that's fine, so long as you're not just wielding your authority over me and being an arbitrary tyrant. We can go play mini-golf if you would like. But she reminds them that she's a big girl now and needs some friend time too. This girl is way too pleasant. It's starting to sound like this movie should have been called Stalking Pollyanna, but even Pollyanna wasn't that agreeable. Even Pollyanna was known to sneak out of the house on occasion. So I won't get into all of the little details, but suffice it to say the stalking and harassment continues. There's a jump scare where Larissa's brother pretends to be an intruder at her sleepover. He is informed that this was the wrong thing to do. Meanwhile, Curt is not persuaded to back off when the mother threatens to spray paint his car his two least favorite colors. The police are good for nothing. During marching band practice, Curt stands alone on the bleachers and calls out to Larissa that he loves her. How come it was sweet in 10 Things I Hate About You, but in this movie, it's just creepy? Oh yeah, she's still in high school, and this guy is in his 20s, and looks nothing like Heath Ledger. The parents do finally find a detective who's going to do everything he possibly can do to get this guy charged with something, which sounds good, but basically amounts to the same thing. In the meantime, have they thought about getting an unlisted number? Apparently not. Curt calls the father at work. So much for the cops' helpful advice. Has the father considered quitting his job? Maybe they can all go hide out in the woods and live off the land. This option never comes up. They have not considered all of their options. Meanwhile, Larissa's friends don't want to hang out with her anymore because it's hard being friends with someone who's being stalked day and night. But then things start looking up. Larissa gets her very own Jeep for her 16th birthday, and Curt gets arrested for trespassing. He is sentenced to 1-year probation and some heavy-duty counseling. That ought to do it. The mother's narration returns. Oh no. Apparently, probation didn't help much. Every time he pushes the boundaries, his probation just gets extended a little more. Great! So at this rate, he'll be pushing the limits of his probation for the rest of his life. The mother attempts to keep Larissa on a short leash. It impacts her ability to hang out with a cute boy played by Paul Rudd. How come the cute boys are always named Scott? Larissa pushes back against her mother, wanting a little more freedom. And she pays for it by nearly being hit by a truck one night while being chased in her Jeep by Curt. The police say it's too bad there aren't any witnesses. Apparently, Larissa doesn't count as a witness. The mother wants her husband to step up and be the vigilante her daughter needs. The father is like, nah, that's not my style. Curt ends up in court again and is given one more chance by a new judge who says the very next time he pulls this crap, he's gonna regret it. Curt makes a compassionate decision for once and decides to leave the state. Larissa is finally able to get a boyfriend and live her life in peace. But it doesn't last long. Curt is back. And now he's a security guard. The perfect job for him. I'll just stop there and let you watch the rest of the movie to find out what happens next. Suffice it to say, the mother fights to make changes to the law. And there will be one final showdown at the end that's worth the whole price of admission. Even though I watched an old recording of this, you can't buy this movie anywhere. If you're expecting some Stalking Back, I'm afraid you'll be disappointed. That's just the title. It has nothing to do with the actual plotline. A rarity for a television film where the title usually spoils the entirety of the movie. I give Moment of Truth, Stalking Back, 3.5 stars. I have a lot of compassion for those involved in the true story. This must have been an absolute nightmare. And even though it's kind of strange that, in the movie at least, the mother lets things go on for way too long before stepping in, even if she had spoken up right away, would it have made any difference? The laws seriously sucked. Even when the mother stood up and fought back, it was like a mouse trying to fight back against a house cat. I think of all of the actors, Shauna Reed was the most impressive. I love the part where she tells Curt she's going to vandalize his car just to scare him off. Too bad it didn't work. You'll notice that I didn't mention anything about the true case, and there's a reason for that. It's because I don't know the true facts. I'm kind of hoping the movie exaggerated the facts, because this movie is just wild.